Thursday, basically, we were back in the surf. We're like hovering probably like 50 feet over the water, and basically smoke just starts pouring into the cabin. It's this black smoke, and the flight mechs, there's two by the door, and they're like, oh, like you can just see their face, and they're like, oh crap.
And welcome to another episode of the Rescue Swimmer Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Vince, joined here with Cody Wright. We're finally checking in on the community, checking in on you swimmers and tadpoles out there, seeing what's new. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. It's probably been like 6 months, or right? How long? When's the last time we did an episode?
I don't know. It's embarrassing. Let's pretend like it's been 6 days. It's only been 6 days, people. You guys just haven't been tuning in to our secret blog. It's on Reddit. It's a underground podcast now. You got to really know how to find it. Now, what we've been working on for the company to keep you guys updated is we actually have 3 new instructors that we're working on programs with. So the first one, which we may have seen on Instagram there, is Lucas Samaruga, and he is a professional free diver. He's broken the record for like the longest free dive in Canada. He's working with us on a program for underwaters. He's been really hard to get a hold of, though. It's like trying to get 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐼nc to do a master class when he's overseas. Yeah. Good luck. He's in the weeds. He's doing the thing. And
he's always on some escapade or something.
Yeah, it's always
country. Not weird, like random. Out of nowhere.
I know. Yeah, I'm assuming it's like the same process of getting Wim Hof to do that book finally. He's just out there doing the thing, climbing Everest and stuff. But when it comes down to sitting down to do a master class, I think it's going to be great when it's done, but it's going to be a timely process. Our second person that we just got on is 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐻𝐿𝐼nc. He's a lifeguard we've had on. That's actually the last episode of the podcast. He's going to actually have a very cool class similar to our master class, our How to Hold Your Breath Like a Rescue Swimmer, and our Perfect Form masterclass. So he's going to teach us rescue procedures out at sea, surf training, rescue procedures that lifeguards use and implement, as well as like how to train like them.
He worked 45 years as a lifeguard for the California State Parks, so he's legit. He ran like their entire training program for a while in Huntington Beach. So it's 10 days, I want to say, of a Coast Guard A school or like a boot camp style lifeguard training where people get washed out and they have like serious skills. They have to different choke points they have to get through to get onto the next phase of training. So it should be cool.
Do they have a high attrition rate as well?
I don't know what their attrition rate is, but I've heard from many people that it's pretty hard.
Yeah. And
I mean, those people, everyone that comes out of that school are like pretty solid in the water.
Really. Didn't you say you've been working with some as well?
Yeah, I swim with some of them up in Northern California.
As in pool training or?
Yeah, pool training, and then they do like ocean swims and stuff. So I'll go out and do that. And they do in and outs. So basically you start, from the sand, you do like 10 push-ups and you sprint out to the ocean and like try to get past the surf zone, swim around a buoy, swim back, and then go back to the sand, sprint up, do 10 push-ups and do like laps of that. They're called in and outs. So I do that with them, stuff like that. It's pretty fun.
That's actually something the rescue swimmers had me do in my airman program in Hawaii. And, I was better in the pool than the other candidates. That said, one of the candidates was a surfer, big time surfer. He was timing those waves. So that's really cool to see the difference between somebody that can work with the waves and timing that. That's not as good or as like a proficient of a swimmer on like flat, calm water. Yeah, definitely doing way better in the ocean than I was. That's kind of what we were talking about in our perfect form class. And hopefully that's what Ed will.
And then they even have, so in their training, and I'm sure Ed will cover this, but they have certain techniques. Like, first of all, they don't swim with goggles, because you're not going to, like, if you're conducting a rescue, you're not going to be wearing goggles. So their open water ocean swim and stuff are all just without goggles, which is something that you have to get used to, And then, when you're swimming out, you swim out freestyle or whatever, you're always looking at the waves. And on the way back, they backstroke because they want to be looking at the waves going towards shore. Like, you don't want to turn your back to the ocean. So it's a little different.
Whoa.
It's a little technique difference that we don't really learn.
That said, if you're going to kind of do a little body surfing situation.
Yeah, you kind of backstroke into it and then you turn last second.
Oh, so you do turn and do a little body surfing.
Yeah, you do the body surfing, but you want to see the waves coming and then you kind of turn into it before you body surf.
Yeah. Otherwise, I feel like you're doing like a reverse scorpion backflip.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. You want to.
Yeah.
But
okay. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder though, why don't lifeguards have like masks just so if they have anything to deal with underwater?
I don't know. It might be situational depending on where you're actually standing your lifeguard duties. but I know that's just how they train. I mean, I'm not exactly sure if there's like certain lifeguard operational areas that would use masks, but who knows? They probably have a couple just in case they need to go underwater.
Yeah. I've done the whole like strap the mask to your leg thing. It just makes you feel cool. And then if you need it, it's there.
That's cool.
But you could still lose it probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then our last instructor that we've been working on a program with is Chuck Fox.
Chuck Fox. Yeah. So I actually met him while I was at EMT school last summer, Coast Guard EMT school. And yeah, he's a Coast Guard diver, went through all that. It's like a kind of a new thing in the Coast Guard. I'm trying to think if they had it when I was in the Coast Guard, when we were in the Coast Guard the first time, like 2014, 15. I think people were talking about it, but it wasn't a rate, but now it's an actual rate.
I think it was kind of a rate, but you would always come into it as like a second class or something.
That's what it is now. So it must have been around then too.
Okay.
You have to be like above the cut for second class, whatever rate you are before you go diver. But they go to Navy dive school. So that's in, I want to say Pensacola, but either way, yeah, he's Navy diver, pretty legit. He's just going to put together a program designed around all the specific training needs of that dive school in Pensacola. So they're a little different. They're a little more Navy style. So they do like sand and like log PT. It must be like a diver and a SEAL thing. They do the log PT, sand, whatever, running in the ocean, getting wet and sandy and stuff. So he's doing all that.
Yeah. Well, you never know operationally when you're going to have to lift a tree, you know?
True. Lift the tree. You never know.
Yeah. So those programs will all come up on our website, rescueswimmermindset.com, under the courses section. And as well as Cody has been working hard at developing himself.
Yeah. So basically in the past 2.5, 3 months, I've been studying for this test called CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And it's through an organization called National Strength and Conditioning Association. I want to say, sometimes I get the acronyms all messed up, but basically a CSCS certification it's kind of like the baseline certification you need to work with collegiate and professional athletes. So a lot of like strength and conditioning coaches for like, say, University of Oregon, their football strength and conditioning coach will have this certification, and everyone working for him and like in the strength and conditioning realm of responsibilities is going to have this certification. So I would say it's kind of like the gold standard as far as like strength conditioning training goes. So the test is like you have this giant textbook and you're supposed to study for like 6 months to a year. And I studied like 3 months and ended up passing. So got the certification. We're good to go. But as far as like applying it to our training, military stuff, we wrote all these training programs, you know, I've done coaching with students, but this just applies more like of a scientific and foundational, like actual skill set that I can apply to different trainings. So if I'm writing a training program for a student, I have like these certain things I learned and then these certain like templates I can use to write a more like comprehensive program. There's like strength and like power principles behind like certain Olympic lifts, and as far as like building your base, your aerobic base and all that stuff goes. So
it sounds like more scientifically and physiologically
you
structured
learn
programs, right?
It's almost like, the certification uses a lot of science. The background is big on just the anatomy, the physiology, the kinesthetics, and like really nailing down the principles of strength and conditioning rather than just like the new age stuff. So you have like a solid base that you can add your specific training to. So for military stuff, for our swimming workouts and our like developing strength and power, so you can work out longer and harder, all that stuff has like some sort of baseline principle that you're working from.
What are some of the specifics that you learned that were memorable for you?
So you go big into like just the concept of periodization training. So say if you're building up, I'm just going to use college athletes because that's kind of what it's focused around. And I'm going to tailor that towards more military and, rescue swimmer and like diver related stuff. But so say you're like building up over the course of a year, you want to train. So you could like focus it around building up towards like Coast Guard like rescue swimmer A school. Periodization is just like methodically and like systematically building your strength and power over a certain period of time with like certain goals in these different like training cycles. So you start off, say winter phase, you're starting off with strength conditioning, right? Or you're trying to build your muscular endurance. So you spend like 2 to 3 months building up just strength. So you're in the gym, just doing like hypertrophy stuff, like just weights basically, and you can do some running, biking in there just to keep your aerobic base somewhat intact.
Now is this like rep dependent, or As
Mhm.
in, is it like
Yeah.
power lifting, or is it just like reps of 10 to 12?
Right. And this is just like a very general example. It would just depend on what sport, or like if you're training for swimmer school or whatever, military training. But if you're training in like the farthest away as possible, you're trying to build just muscle mass. So you'll have the ability to add power and strength later. So that's going to be the rep range around like 6 to 12 reps of like pretty classic lifting, like bench press, squat, deadlift, stuff like that. And then you can work on like auxiliary muscles, trying to build up your back a little more. You can do lat pull downs, just basic stuff, right? Like bent over rows, just the classic curls, just building muscle mass. After that, you go into like it's like an endurance phase. So you're like working on muscular endurance. So after you build up a little bit of the muscle mass, you work on muscular endurance. So you're doing like whatever, like 12 to 20 reps of the same type of things. And that's another period, right? So you're doing that. The first one, like it could be like anywhere from like a month to 3 months, like I was saying earlier. And the next cycle could be the same thing, another month to 3 months, depending on your timeline. And then once you have that endurance built up, then you start working on strength, so like heavy deadlift, heavy squats, like with low reps, 3 to 5 reps. And then after that, you start working on power, which is just like explosive movements, those like Olympic, like cleans, snatches, all that stuff. And while you're doing all that, that's just like your strength base. And you're also building your aerobic base, and you're in the pool and stuff. So it's like kind of complex, and you have to kind of work everything in together. But that's like the strength foundations as far as like a training cycle would go.
Is that sequence important? You're bringing up, strength. So like, yeah, between 8 to 12, which is common.
Yeah, it's like well known.
Like bodybuilder. Yeah. But is it important to then go to that endurance? So 12 to 20, is it important to do that in a consecutive way? Or could you go from that like 8 to 12 and then go into the powerlifting for like 1 to 5 reps? Again, is it important to go in the sequence that you just mentioned?
That's the most beneficial sequence of lifts. So if you do it the way I mentioned it, I mean, everything doesn't work out like perfectly, and sometimes you have like a smaller timeline, or you want to try something new. But as far as like the principles go, that's what you want to do. And like any college athlete or professional athlete is kind of going through that exact same cycle. They're not really varied. Yeah.
Break it down. So first stage is
going to be just muscle building. So you're doing hypertrophy stuff, freaking in the gym, building muscle. And you're in that period, you're going to be like eating a bunch, trying to just gain as much mass as possible. I mean, in a healthy way. And then you're going to go into endurance. So you're building.
Wait, and say reps too. So phase one.
Oh yeah, reps. So that's going to be 6 to 12.
Yeah.
For the first phase. Number 2 is endurance. So that's 12 to 20.
Yeah.
Reps. And then you're going to go into strength or strength power, but mostly strength. And that's going to be 5-ish reps, 3 to 5 really.
Okay.
And then you start working on power, which is going to be like 1 to 5 reps roughly, typically. Power versus strength, you're developing your ability to generate a lot of force quickly. So it's a lighter weight than you would strength, right? So like strength, you'd be going heavy, and then power, you're doing about the same reps or a little lower reps, but faster movements with lighter weight.
And what are examples of this? Is it like quick deadlifts as well as like box jumps and maybe sprint stuff? Is that mostly what we're looking at?
Well, from the strength side, it's going to be like just like a clean or a snatch, like a kettlebell snatch or like a barbell clean, those like kind of Olympic style lifts. Not so much a fast deadlift, but it's mostly like explosive movements. Sprints also are good.
I'm talking about power phase, right? So like
this is for power, yeah.
Yeah. So explosiveness. Yeah.
Generating explosiveness, just generating force quickly. Plyometric stuff. Yeah. Box jumps, all that stuff.
Okay.
And then it gets like, you can add in different stuff. Like you can do some sort of like power move or strength with power. Like some of those can get intertwined based on your needs, but this is just like a general overview, right? So yeah.
Interesting. Because myself, the 2 phases I definitely neglect is endurance. And that's likely, I've made the excuse of that's my like ectomorph body type.
You mean like muscular endurance, or like endurance as far as like running goes?
Oh no, endurance is, well, that too, because my old knees are weak.
Okay, no, I'm just
but I'm talking, but I'm talking endurance as far as reps of 12 to 20. I rarely play around in that range, aside from like pull-up stuff. And then also power is a phase I've certainly neglected in the recent years. I don't do box jumps. I can't say I do. I usually end with a power set after my deadlifts, which are either in that strength. So I usually do I've only really done pyramids for deadlifting. So, start at like 15 reps and then you're working your way down as you're increasing in weight. And then at the end, I go into like a power phase lift. So I've really never had that dedicated 2-3 month phase like that. And I would certainly be interested to note like the difference or how that would change my physical performances.
Yeah. And I also relate to that because I would say as far as endurance goes, like muscular endurance with lifting, I've done pretty good at that somewhat recently, but the power stuff I completely neglect. Like I don't think I'd really ever done power lifting too much. And I just do it like once a week now. And I've only been doing it, since I started learning about it. I was like, oh, I need to start doing power workouts. So I do it once a week. I mean, I don't have a huge noticeable difference in my performance yet, but it hasn't been that long. So we'll have to see as far as that goes.
So are you going to implement this different phase system, or since you're not per se training for any specific athletic endeavor, you're not going to break it down like that?
As for my training or
yeah,
I'm not like training for a specific thing as far as in the rest of my world goes, or even like physically, I don't need something specific for that right now because I'm not trying to build up to something. But if I'm training for something in the future, I will go back to that. Or I might even just like take those principles and just like have seasons of workouts, like in the summer, I don't want to be lifting super heavy, and like I'm typically trying to stay like pretty in shape so I can go do some like cool hikes or like go running somewhere cool or swimming, surfing. But in the winter, when it's a little like things slow down, you can, just do heavy lifting and all that stuff to build that baseline for the next summer or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know if I should confess this, but it is a confession. Basically from the age of 13 to what am I now, like 29, until like 6 months ago, I've always worked out. And like I'm talking averaging 3 days a week, lifting, some form of regimented exercise. But the last 6 months, pretty much since like we haven't done the podcast, I wanted to see what would occur with my rock climbing if I stopped lifting.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see, more specifically, I wanted to see like if the flexibility, it's not an excuse because Olympic gymnasts are super jacked, big muscle mass, but very flexible. That's because they spend time doing both body lifting as well as stretching. I have not done that since I feel like I don't have that much time with everything going on right now in my life. I'm like, okay, let's see if I just cut out lifting, if that's going to enhance flexibility and also shed weight for rock climbing. And overall, my result is I haven't really lost that much weight.
Yeah.
And my hips flexors and everything, I can get closer to the wall and I can lift the leg higher, but really not much of a difference. So I think I'm going to start again.
Yeah. Have you noticed like a definition decrease in your muscle size and stuff? Or
I'd say, yeah, it's very weird. Like arms I definitely look less like ripped. The arms are definitely smaller volume.
Yeah.
Yet I weigh the same. Yet I don't look chubby or anything.
Yeah.
I don't look like it's like fat gain. So I don't know where the hell the weight has gone or distributed. It's very strange. I don't know what's going on. But but like straight up 6-7 months of really, all right, sometimes I'll go to the gym, I'm like, all right, I need to do a little bench pressing or like deadlifting, but really not regimented like I normally do.
Yeah.
And diet wise, it's pretty much the same, eating healthy, but not as much as I do when I lift. I don't know. It's very weird. Maybe it's just the body type, the ectomorph body type there again, but I don't know.
Right.
So I think I'll get back into it soon. It was kind of my cutting season. I wanted to see what would happen, but
so you just climb a little harder for like peak climb season kind of.
Yeah, because rock climbers are just, they're just strong in the fingers, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the ideal frame is kind of wiry with strong fingers, right? Really?
Yeah, skinny legs, like no legs. Like when you see those great rock climbers, you're like, yeah, they often have toothpick legs, and you're like, well, there's nothing to lift down there.
Yeah, not ideal for, I guess it is just ideal for climbing specifically, but maybe good for swimming too. Actually, low climbing, swimming.
You're talking not having muscular legs?
Yeah. Like,
yeah, I suppose.
You'd rather have a little smaller legs and just bigger upper body. So
yeah, you still want some muscle in the leg.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. Yeah, you definitely want muscle in the leg. But I know I have like super heavy legs, so I was always super hard to buddy toe in A school. So I mean, that's just, I'm like known for that.
You got some big old muscular ham hocks for sure.
It doesn't work. It doesn't help for climbing either. But
no, and in the water, muscle sinks, muscle doesn't float, so it's definitely causing that drag. And like we talk in that perfect form masterclass there, the legs, if they're dragging low, that's definitely an issue. So you got to push the hips down.
Yeah.
To balance that out.
You have to
you got to push your pelvis like downward a little bit.
Downward slightly more to compensate that drag.
Yeah.
No, that seems right. I was just thinking maybe I'll try it when I go swimming tomorrow.
Yeah, well, a lot of beginner swimmers, that's what you'll see is that the main issue is they're trying to keep the head up and their legs are therefore sinking. And now they're kind of kicking upward instead of planing out by putting their hips a little forward, if not even down a little bit, and almost creating a slight arch is okay, you know?
Yeah, you talked about that in perfect form, right? A bunch.
Yeah. So what's new in the Coast Guard life? You got any tea? What about the engine failure? Can you talk about that yet?
Oh yeah. I went to 𝐴HRS, Advanced Helicopter Rescue Swimmer School, which Vince is also a graduate of.
Great.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, I think we've talked about it on the podcast, but like the cave that you see in the Guardian, which is allegedly in Alaska, is Advanced Helicopter Rescue Swimmer School, and that's where the swimmers go and swim in a cave.
Yeah, so it's freaking sick. Yeah. That school is awesome, and every rescue swimmer and like pilot flight mech wants to go to that school. Yeah. So and it's put on by the Coast Guard stand team, which is a group of air crewmen and women. There's like swimmers, flight mechs, and pilots who are all in Mobile, and they go out there to Astoria and put on this school for a week long, and they just cycle through for like a couple months in the winter and in the spring, freaking with this school, and it's just a week of training in super critical and heavy seas. You do cliff rescue stuff, all that, and the cave rescue if the seas aren't too big. Sometimes like it's so big up there, they don't even want you to go in the cave, you know? So
yeah.
Did you get to go in the cave with your class when you went back?
No, it was really funny though. Who was the senior chief at the time? He had shaved head, super stud, super disciplined, and well dedicated.
Ooh.
Man, that guy revolutionized the rescue swimmer program.
Master Chief Bean.
Maybe. Hopefully we're not getting that wrong. Anyway, we were the only swimmer, like it was just me and him that got like close to the cave opening, and we were just like out there getting ripped up by these waves that like it's a very sharp break, very steep, like I don't know, at least single overhead, if not like 1.5 or something, and really like kind of back-breaking waves, and we were just like flirting with the opening of the wave, but all the other swimmers were like on the shore. They're like, nah.
Yeah.
And then we didn't go in.
Pretty crazy stuff out there. But yeah, so I went again in October of 2021. We did Monday, like you do surf training in the like breaking seas, just like off on the coast of Oregon there. And then Tuesday we did, I want to say like cliff training. Wednesday was another round of cliff training. And then Thursday, basically we were back in the surf and we're like hovering 20, not 20 feet, like probably 50 feet over the water, over the surf. And there's 3 of us in there, 3 rescue swimmers, and there's probably 2 flight mechs. We're in a 60, so the bigger helicopter. And then the 2 pilots up front. And basically smoke just starts pouring into the cabin. You can see it, it's like sucking in from the top of the helicopter, right? It's this black smoke, and the flight mechs, there's 2 in by the door, and they're like, oh, like you can just see their face, and they're like, oh crap. And so like we just, all 3 of the rescue swimmers, like I think I was a little bit like going towards the cabin door, I want to say. And I just like went back and like put my gunner's belt on. I know I had my gunner's belt on. I went back and put my like actual seatbelt on. We were all off ICS, you know, so we couldn't talk to anyone because we were just doing rescue swimmer stuff with our rescue swimmer helmets. So we couldn't talk on the internal communication system. Yeah. The flight mech just like looks at us and tells us to buckle up. And we just like immediately brake left, like fast, and we're just like going fast over the water, like 40, 50 feet above the water. It had to have been like not that long, 20 seconds maybe. There's still like smoke coming in and stuff. And then immediately you just see sand, and they just hook the plane in, like shoot the tail around and just land immediately on the sand. And we all just egress real quick, and they shut the helicopter down, and it was fine. But it was like an emergency landing full on, you know, pretty sketchy in the moment. And then it ended up being okay. I think the starter generator, it's like a piece of the engine that helps with starting it, basically sheared or exploded or something, caught on fire.
Whoa.
And then the smoke ensued. So pretty gnarly. And then they ended up canceling the whole 𝐴HRS class after that. So we didn't do anything after Thursday. So Friday was kind of
because of that.
A wash. Yeah, because of that. They had to do like, you know, they had to get that helicopter fixed and out of the sand before the tide came back.
Oh yeah.
So the air station in Astoria, everyone had to like come together and freaking go fix his helicopter on the beach in somewhere in Washington. And they did it. It was pretty legit, and they got it out before the tide came in. But
whoa,
because it was like, I think it was like close to low tide when they landed, and I don't even know if the tide was gonna hit the plane, but they were super worried about it, right? Because that's a destroyed aircraft if water gets up in it. So yeah, they all came together and fixed it within like 24 hours to get it out of there before the next huge tidal swing.
So again, what part failed?
It was, I think it was the starter generator.
Okay. And what's that doing for flight purpose?
That just helps with starting the engine.
Okay.
But it was on fire, so.
Right.
And that it's mounted to the engine.
But you're losing altitude if that fails? Because if it's just for
you could
starting
be fine. You would just be worried that it would catch other things on fire.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure if you'd be fine, but it's not doing much in flight, you know?
Yeah. The helicopter wasn't per se like losing altitude because.
No. Yeah. Okay. It was totally fine as far as that goes.
That's pretty cool though. That the pilots were like, all right,
the pilots and the flight mechs were on it like so fast. It was pretty cool to see because like we're just useless. Rescue swimmers are kind of useless when it comes to stuff like that. We're just like, we're along for the ride at that point. So the pilots and flight mechs like nailed it. And you know, it's a stand team flight mech, so they're
right. They're really on their stuff.
Yeah, like a chief AMT out there, they just running it. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, great story right there. Heck yeah. All right. Yeah. So we're going to talk mental health. I wanted to just talk about like what you implement in your day-to-day life. Cause I think healthy habits is something that I think is important to implement. There's certainly like a growing mental health issue after the pandemic. I wanted to kind of check in with our audience as far as like what we do and what measures that we implement in our day-to-day life to keep on my mental health as well as our physical health. Cause we're always talking training. That's important. But it's kind of like, what else are we doing in between training? What do we do for resting? So yeah, I'm curious, what do you do as far as some steps to keep your either mental or physical health in check?
Pretty bad at this. I actually am quite terrible. As far as like physical, are we just talking mental or are we talking everything?
Well, we could talk like physical habits as well, but often, you know, two and two are connected.
They are connected. That's basically what I was going with this is like, I've been really bad. I do minimal recovery as far as from workouts go. Like I need to like stretch and do mobility stuff more. That's one thing I've definitely been lagging on. As far as mental health goes, I don't have any like active things I like seek out. I don't go like, hey, I'm feeling a little down or like overworked. I need to like figure out something for my mental health. Usually I just have a bunch of hobbies that I do that just like distract me from whatever I'm stressing about or whatever. So, you know, I just go surfing or something or, you know, trail running or something, but I don't really have a like actual rest and recovery, like methodology I follow. I don't know. Yeah.
That's actually something I struggled with myself. You use the word like distract ourselves. And I think I do that as well. I think the elite military type people or just like dedicated athletes, we just distract ourselves with various activities. It's hard for us to just take a second. Even myself, like distracting myself is something I'm amazing at in the sense of if I'm not doing anything, I'll be like listening to a podcast, which is great. I'm educating myself, but I'm never really allowing that space to think, right? I'm always trying to grow. But in that sense, I'm not taking the time to take all the knowledge and just let myself be at rest. So I think that is important to sometimes just challenge yourself to not be listening to anything and not per se be doing any type of activity and just trying to check in on yourself. Treat yourself like your own counselor. That's important to do, I think, at times, and something I'm trying to implement in my own life. One thing that I think you're good at, though, I feel like you're pretty good at having a schedule. You get up early, you kind of go to bed at a structured hour. Would you say that's accurate?
It varies. Even before I joined the Coast Guard the second time, you know, like a little over a year ago, I was good at like waking. I did this a lot. I think I would like get up and I had like a notepad and stuff and I would just like write down my to-do list. But now I don't do that as much. I'm like a little more sporadic, which I notice is detrimental to my productivity, you know? So like, it is good to wake up, have some sort of morning routine, and then like checking in when you were talking about that. The only time you really like get to check in, or I get to check in myself, is like every once in a while we have a sauna at my gym. And that's a good time because there's no way you can't bring headphones in there because I'll probably break, you know? So I'd never do. That's the only time you get some real quiet and you can actually like think a little bit. Other than that, I'm just like always doing what you were saying, you know, like you just have a podcast in, or like even music is a little bit of a distractor. The actual silence that you get from just sitting somewhere is super rare for me.
Yeah. Do you ever run without music?
sometimes, but
Okay.
super rarely.
Yeah.
I don't like it that much.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it's a good thing to try to push yourself occasionally to do that.
The last time I did it was I did a marathon like a little over a month ago, just in Humboldt here. And they don't let you wear headphones for the marathon because it's sanctioned, whatever. So that was like, a full on, like I ran in 3 hours, 14 minutes or something. So that's a long run with no headphones.
Why do you think that is, that they don't let you have
headphones? I just think it's this thing. It's one of those like qualifier races for other marathons. So they just it's like just a rule book based on, they just have rules. Cause I think it's a qualifier for Boston if you reach the time. So they don't let you do it there. So I think it's just a national rule or something for whatever organization does it.
Yeah. We talked about Cody and what we've been doing with the business, but one of the things that's taken up a lot of my time is I'm working on this film, and it's pretty much like a veteran mental health piece. And this guy like solos as a distraction for his own problem. So again, as a distraction. And I think we often, especially like elite folks and athletes, we utilize these distractions as our, mental health coping mechanism. And mine, this film was inspired by mine like a year ago or so, when I was like going through a hard time. I was like soloing, but same thing, I was like distracting myself from my own problems. I was always listening to music. So I was like jacked up on like soloing and listening to music, but not really checking in on myself.
Right.
And if I was overwhelmed, I would feel in my body, I'm like, I gotta go climb some rocks sketchily without a rope.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of athletes have done that. They just like distract themselves and just pour themselves into, either destroying their body or just really pushing themselves because they're just trying to cope with whatever they're dealing with. And you probably didn't see this film, but I was talking with a friend about Alex Megos, one of the best rock climbers in the world there. he had a film like a year or two ago. I asked my buddy, I was like, oh, did you watch that film? And he's like, yeah, I just watched it. I was like, how was it? And he goes like, well, my assessment is the guy fucking hates himself. Like, so like, which was like, I was like, oh, interesting. Like one of the best rock climbers in the world. His interpretation of it was he got like so much self-hatred, and he's like just distracting himself and pouring himself into like this sport. So I don't know if that's something that happens in the rescue swimmer community, but I'm sure it occurs a lot in like these difficult athletic endeavors. Is trying to think about, hey, am I doing all of this as a distraction for something that I'm like refusing to check in?
Probably mostly that's the like probably almost always that's true.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dare I say, it makes you reflect like, oh, did all rescue swimmer graduates, like, do they have some kind of dark pain that they're covering up? Like they push themselves so hard because they're like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm just gonna drown over here. Like this is my safe spot where I'm drowning. But my mental drowning, at least that's at bay for now.
Yeah, definitely varying degrees of that. But every person has that, so this is how you channel it.
Yeah. So we'll talk some mental health tricks too with this expert. But one thing I started implementing though in the past couple of months is cold plunges, which is something that was first brought into my life in rescue swimmer school by Holt. Got his first name there.
The chief now.
Chief. Oh, nice. He's still a rescue swimmer. We always looked up to him as a phenomenal leader and so on top of physical development as well as even mental health. And one thing he recommended was doing cold plunges. And this is well ahead of like Wim Hof being publicized time, at least that I knew of and the average world knew of. He implemented like foam rolling in rescue swimmer school and all these different things that were like, at first rescue swimmer school was like beat you up consistently. There was no science behind it. It's just like, let's see if your body breaks or your mental breaks, but we're just going to keep pushing you until one of those happens or not, and you make it to the final finish line. But rescue swimmers developed to more than that. And one of the things Holt implemented was the cold plunges. And I always hated the cold.
Yeah, you guys doing those in A school?
He didn't force us to by any means. He was like, hey, I'm not saying you should do this, but you guys should probably do this. Like by no means is this like part of the program, but you should probably do this. And honestly, we had so much faith in his education that we were like, all right, we're going in. And we were a winter class, so we were like in the water almost like every other day up to our necks, and we would stay in there for like 10 minutes. I think a range of like 5 to 10 is like is good. If you can get to 5, I think that's a good thing if it's a very cold body of water. But yeah, I started re-implementing that into my life and even implementing cold showers at the end of my showers there. And it's really hard at first, but it's super surprising how quickly it gets easier. And I think that does a lot for you. It's like or mentally, it's something that's a little challenging because you don't want to do it. Nobody likes that cold, but it pushes you to do something that's slightly uncomfortable. And once you do, it becomes easier and easier to do. And I think that's just like a good way to, if you're taking showers in the morning, that's a great way to do it. And it wakes you up a little bit. But a lot of other things are like your blood vessels, they'll shrink. You're bringing in more blood flow closer to vital organs. And after leaving that like cold, your blood vessels reopen, and that improves the circulation. It's good for your immune system. It's good to circulate your blood flow. But mentally, I think it's just a good thing to adopt. And it's challenging though. But if you can keep certain type of habits that are challenging, like getting up early and going to bed early, it's just hard to do when you're in a bad mental state. But it really does get you out of it in certain ways.
Yeah,
cold plunges, man.
I'm pretty bad at cold plunges. I'm such a baby when it comes to colder. I'll do them every once in a while out here just because the ocean's always freaking cold. So after surfing, I'll just like take my wetsuit off and just kind of lay there for a little bit in the surf zone.
Oh,
pretty
nice.
Good. Pretty freezing, but I won't do. I'll do maybe a minute. Yeah.
Especially, are the waves coming in and out, or you're in it?
Yeah, it's kind of like they're kind of like in a shallow spot where they're kind of like the smaller waves, and the waves are kind of washing over you, but they're like a couple feet, you know? So you're just kind of floating there, getting hit by the waves. So
yeah,
it's definitely hard and cold. And the water's probably like, you know, it ranges from like 48 to 55 throughout the year. So
yeah, it's so cold in the Pacific. Oh my
very
God.
Cold. Yeah.
Yeah. But other things like I Googled as far as cold dips go, it really helps with chronic pain. That's actually why Holt would have us do it, was to like reduce the lactic acid, the swelling. That's why we were in it for so long. It really helps those joints. So I honestly though recommend kind of keeping the hands out, because I don't think it's the best, unless maybe you have arthritis. I don't think it's the best for the hands.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it also boosts your metabolisms. It's actually proven to be better sleep.
We can do some digging and maybe do a blog post on this or something for recovery.
Yeah, we should. I think that's important. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is like focusing a little bit on recovery. And maybe we'll have somebody come in to talk really recovery only. But as far as this goes, yeah, it lowers inflammation. It boosts performance. Your neurotransmitters, the norepinephrine, which is a critical chemical in the body that helps regulate attention, focus, and energy. The cold plunges increase the levels of that norepinephrine.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, and simultaneously increasing the energy.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's something you don't want to do at first, but then once you do it, you're like, okay, that sucked. And then the second time, you're like, it's kind of easier. And then, but now I'm like, I kind of just do it after the shower every time, and I'm
just a habit.
Yeah, a recommendation I would do though, or have, is working on your breath, focusing on your breath. Having an exhale as you're going in the water truly helps. So a long exhale as you're like really putting your body into that shock. That's what's really helps. And then taking deep breaths is pretty important. Wim Hof's like breath technique is quite interesting. It's you take a full inhale, so like quite slow, and then you starting at the stomach, kind of like we teach in the Hold Your Breath program, but start at the stomach, intercostal, chest, neck, and then exhale it quick. So it goes. And what that's actually doing is really hyperventilating. But you do that 30 times, you get like a little high. And so he's doing that before going into these cold plunges. And I forget exactly what that does, but for the cold plunges, it really helps to have that regulated breath and focusing on that breath. And then the other thing he talks about is when you're doing cold plunges, it's increasing the brown fats, which is something that modern humans have shed a lot because we're wearing clothes all the time, but it's something we used to have a lot more of. The brown fats, it's like a healthier fat than what's the other one? White fats? I forget. It keeps you warm. So you're building those every time you're doing a cold plunge, and it's not meaning that you're looking fatter, but it's like, I guess, like a tissue that's growing and keeping you warm. You're polarizing yourself, polar bearizing yourself. Yeah, man. So I'll talk to this guy about mental health. Good guest we got coming up here. But yeah, we should do a recovery post. Anything else you wanted to share with the crew?
With the CSCS that I've been working on and I am certified, I'm finishing up like the back end. I have to like work to get my certification complete with the organization, NSCA. But once that's all done, I'm going to start coaching again, just doing personal coaching for anyone who needs it. So that basically we'll start working on all that stuff, and you'll see an Instagram post or something in the near future on that. So if you're interested in that, you can like send me an email or Instagram DM, and we can even start, figuring it out now.
Yep. If anybody happens to be in the Vancouver area in Canada and that is looking for a specific type of water training, that means underwaters or swimming and water confidence or rescue techniques, yeah, hit me up as well. We have a Canadian audience. I don't know how many are in Vancouver/Squamish area. Yeah.
Find out.
Cool. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Mental health.
I wanna be a mountain climber. I wanna be a mountain